Birds of Prey issue 8, Chuck Dixon writing with Greg Land on art. And this is a Dick Babs issue. Canaries, there's a bit of a bookend. And a framing device, actually, because Dick is manning the Oracle station. And when Canary calls in and hears a man's voice, she's like, "Who is this? What's going on? Where the hell's Oracle?" And he's being very casual about the whole thing, and it sets him up. And it's not like he's telling her the story; he's just thinking about it. He's because she asks like, "Hey, are you and Babs friends, or are you more than friends?" And he's like, "Well, after the last time we were together, I'm not really that sure." And it leads to him thinking about what this night was that he's talking about, and that's what the issue is. That's what the story is until we come back to the end, which was a date, effectively. Although they couldn't really agree if it was a date or not. I will say there is a really weird bit of art from Greg Land with Nightwing swinging through the city when he jumps off the bridge. He's sort of swinging with his legs up in the air just before he throws another hook, and the body, like, shape and proportions.
You're telling me Greg Land art can be weird? I'm shocked. No, I do know. It's the way he twists. But his abs still look straight on, even though his chest is twisting.
Yes, it looks like he's got a really, really wide stomach, basically. Not a fat stomach, just a really, really wide one. So it's a bit odd, but hey, that's what it is. But so they have this date, they have dinner. He takes her to the circus, which he technically owns. So
cheap date.
Yes, what she calls him out on. He's like, "Hey, I'm losing an admission here. This is circus."
Yeah, old $6 of it. I don't know how much a circus costs.
And she gives them shit for it, but they're having fun. She even pokes fun at him when she's like, "Hey, I mean, I'm a little bit nervous if there's any clowns going to show up." And he's like, "Oh shit, why didn't I think of that? That might be an issue." And she's like, "Relax, Dick. I'm busting your balls. I'm over it." Which is kind of part of the point of the issue, is that she wants to make it clear to him that, like, she has moved on. It's not that she never thinks about revenge occasionally. I mean, when it first happened to her, yes, she did think about revenge on the Joker. But she doesn't let it dominate her life in the way that, like, everyone else around her seems to still be always thinking about it, and is always, either thinking about revenge or thinking about that Babs needs help. So that's kind of where the heart of the issue is. And there's also some cracks from her about how there's too much advertising everywhere. Belly Burger gets a...
Wouldn't be a DC comic without it.
Gets a little thing. But it has this downbeat moment where they reminisce, and it becomes this honest conversation where ultimately he says, "Look, is there anything you miss? Like, I know you're strong and you're proud of who you are, but is there anything you genuinely miss from before the accident?" And accident's not the right term, but you know what I mean. And she talks about, "Oh yeah, well, see when you're like grappling like through the city, and there's that moment before the slack goes where you just feel like you're flying, like that I miss." And Dick's like, "Huh, I could do something about that." So he takes her up in the trapeze and lets her swing in the circus. Even makes her do a little transition on her own, and it's this moment where she's scared for a little bit, and this is where the art in the issue is not bad by any means. I think it does a decent enough job at doing all this.
There's nothing wrong with it. I think I can feel whichever model he used for Dick's face changing depending on whether or not he's in costume or not. he looks like a very different person.
That's I think that's fair. And it's this really nice thing where Dick says, "Hey, can we do this again? This doesn't have to be a one-time thing." And Babs is like, basically, "No, I don't want to." She says this thing like, "Do you want to know why I don't have any handles on my chairs? Because I don't like to be pushed." And it leaves it on this kind of cold note, and you kind of feel bad for Dick here because it does kind of feel like he's trying his best and he really wants to do this the right way, and that's when it comes back to Dick at the end. But it's got a fun little beat at the end here where Dick refused to tell Black Canary who he was, and when he says he's got to go because Babs is coming back, she just says, "Bye, Nightwing." Like, she just knows. Which is a nice little callback to like 4 issues ago when Canary was trying to like give Babs a hard time by trying to ask her to set her up with Nightwing, knowing full well that the Babs has a thing with him. But yeah, it just ends with this thing where she's like, "Hey, thanks for manning the station for a bit. I needed some sleep," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll anything for you, Babs." And that's the end of the story. It's just a sweet tale about Babs and Dick and their relationship, and kind of the perpetuating the will they won't they of it, I suppose, which is fair.
Yeah.
But it's sweet enough.
It's a perfectly fine issue that I don't think belonged in this book. I think this probably should have been in the Nightwing book instead. In a way, because I don't think this is. I don't feel like this justifies as if I'm buying a Birds of Prey title, I want a Birds of Prey story. I want I want Black Canary in there, and technically she's there at the start and the end, but I don't feel like I got a Birds of Prey issue here. I feel like I got a Nightwing issue.
Don't be a dick. Look, this is equally an Oracle story as it is a Nightwing story, and there's nothing wrong. And there's nothing wrong with a team book taking an issue and dedicating it to one of their characters. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I feel like when your team is 2 people and you're still relatively early, this feels very much too one-sided for my tastes. Especially as I say, yes, it's also a Babs issue here. And if there was she had a solo book, I'd say it should go in there. But she doesn't, so it's fine. But there is a Nightwing book; it could go in there quite easily. So that's where the frustration comes from for me, where I'm like, this feels like it could have fit in the Nightwing ongoing book, and I could have had a Birds of Prey issue here.
The amount of arbitrary, weird rules you make up for yourself constantly is
Use them.
awe-inspiring.
I don't make them up; they're just there. You just haven't discovered them yet.
Bunch of arbitrary nonsense. This is a fine issue that is, at its heart, is about Dick trying to figure out where Babs is coming from, which is why that's the heart of the issue, and therefore is why it's more relevant to Babs's book, which in this case is Birds of Prey. And so much of this book has been heavily leaned on Dinah, because Dinah's the one out doing the action. Dinah's the one having the big moments where she either gets into a fight and has to figure her way out of it, or she has to make a moral choice on her end. So saying, no, let's do a story about Babs, I think is very important to this book, and I think it's perfectly fine.
I don't mind having a story about Babs, but I think even all those Black Canary stuff, they still rely on the back and forth, the relationship between the two of these characters. Whereas this here is Nightwing narrating the entire issue, barring a page at the start and end. It is literally a Nightwing issue. As much as Babs is a key character, it is entirely from Nightwing's point of view. It's a Nightwing issue, and that's what frustrates me. I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote this originally for Nightwing and for whatever reason had to rework it into this book.
Look, that is entirely possible that happened. But at the same time, talking about arbitrary things, plenty of issues of someone's book is narrated by someone who's not the main character. That is not that uncommon.
No,
yes,
but
don't get me wrong. Batman will narrate most issues of Batman. However, I said narrate most issues of Batman. But once in a while, there'll be a reason why, say, Alfred might narrate an issue, or there'll be a reason why the villain might narrate an issue, or maybe,
and that's fine because Alfred doesn't have his own book to narrate this issue in.
Arbitrary nonsense.
Maybe, but it annoyed the hell out of me because I wanted a Birds of Prey issue and I didn't get one.
Why are you just happy it was good? Why does it have to?
I mean, I didn't love the issue either way. That was fine. If it had been spectacular, maybe I'd have overlooked it. But it was a fine issue, and I'm like, it was a fine issue, but I would have rather have read a Birds of Prey issue, and that's why it bugged me because I'm like, I feel like I wasted an issue.
This run is like 70 issues long.
That's irrelevant when I'm 8 issues in.
Yeah, but this isn't like you're reading a new book and you don't know how long it's going to last. This is a book where you know how long the run is. You can look at it and say...
That's not the point. It's not like he knew when he was writing this that, it's fine. I've got 70 issues. I can waste one here.
What difference does it make if he knew at the time? That's irrelevant now.
It's not irrelevant. Context is important.
Oh... Let's move on before I get annoyed at you. What are you rating this? Oh, he's unplugged himself. It
came out, not intentionally.
He's sitting there like a tit as I'm waiting for him to rate this book.
Well, it wasn't intentional. It's a 6.
I'm going to give this an 8.
I feel like you just bumped that off like at least half a point because of what I said.
I know. I enjoyed the book quite a bit. It helps that I'm invested in the Dick Babs side of things, but I actually think the scene of her, flying through the air on in the circus, I think that stuff's really good and really sweet.
I think it's fair to point out that I'm not really as into the Dick Babs stuff in general.
Yeah.
So maybe that it's not against it, but it doesn't give me that predisposition towards it.
There's plenty of other people that Starfire can be with. It's fine.